Welcome everyone, it's great to be here. I am Sarah Beksinski, the Director of Development for the Northwest Division, and welcome. Here we are at Foundations Training. Congratulations on your early years in the Salvation Army. I've been with the Salvation Army for almost 6 years now, and previous to that, also in nonprofit fundraising. I absolutely love it. We're here to build God's kingdom together. My father was a minister, my mother was a social worker, and my favorite aunt was the head of parole in East LA. Social service is in my background, in my DNA, and I love serving alongside you and all my colleagues in the Northwest Division. Today, I have the honor of sharing with you how to best partner with divisional headquarters, which I represent, and what this means for you. So we're going to talk about fundamental development principles and functions. We're going to try to get a better understanding of having a strong partnership with divisional headquarters and what that means for you. And then through all that, most importantly, augment your fundraising outcomes and your community engagement. And we're going to do that through a tool that I provided that will be your homework, which is your annual development plan. So I look forward to doing this with you today. All right, so I shared with you my role as the Divisional Director of Development for the Northwest Division, and I want you to know that I see myself as a dedicated partner for you, and I am committed to your success. And I hope that all the other divisional directors of development in the Western Territory feel the same way. I predict that they do. And I also see myself as a mentor. I have an opportunity to work alongside you and mentor you. And I also know that I'm a student because I get surprised every day. I learn new things every day. People like you in the field tell me new brilliant things that they're trying to achieve and how they're doing it. And then I get to pay that forward to people like you and use their creativity for your benefit. So yes, I am a student as well. And I see myself as a fellow servant leader. So thank you for the incredible work that you do in your communities. And I want to do that too. I just do it in a little bit of a different way. I look at myself as a relationship builder and a joyful giver. I get to give, and then I work with our donors who are incredible and also joyful givers. So it comes full circle. So thank you for joining me today, and let's get started. All right, so I want you to know that one important thing for this class is engagement. And there is a way for you to do that. Since we're virtual, I would encourage you to please participate by actively engaging in the chat function. So there's some questions in there. Please enter in to talk to other students, to talk to me, and we'll have some back and forth, and that's the best way for us to get that accomplished today. So some of the questions you'll see in there to think about now, and also as you go through the course, is what support do you currently find most valuable? Where do you need more guidance? Are there services or support available to you that's a surprise? And then what guidance do you think you'll seek from DHQ as a result of this class? So I look forward to hearing your thoughts on that. So, importance of fundraising, more money for the mission. You all do wonderful things with the mission every day, and we all know that resources are very important to advance the mission. So let's talk about how do we access those resources? How do we maximize those resources? So the thing about fundraising is it can impact everything. It has residual benefit for everything that you do. Sounds good, right? I'm convincing you that this is important, right? So here's what it can help you do beyond just the act of having more resources for the mission. It encourages planning. We all know that if you plan, your outcomes are going to be better, right? It helps you identify opportunities and vulnerabilities. We all know that if we know how we can do it better or what we need to keep a lookout for, we will be stronger, right? So the other thing too is it helps you align goals and your teams. By team, I mean anybody and everybody in the community that's invested in your mission. And it's fantastic, right, to have your goals and those people aligned, moving towards the same objectives on your behalf. It helps you prioritize projects. I know that you have a million things coming at you all day long, in, day out, right? And prioritization is incredibly important. It will help you do that. It expands your community reach We all need more partners. We all need more people walking alongside us, helping us. It solidifies those partnerships. It makes them stronger, more valuable, and it helps hold us accountable. Evaluation is incredibly important, right? Because you need to be able to prove to those people in the community that want to invest in you why it's important that they invest in you. And if you're evaluating, you have an accountability measure to share with the community. And it ensures sustainability. We all want to be here for the next 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, and this is how you'll achieve it. So all of these residual benefits are part of fundraising. It's worth your time, I promise. All right, we're gonna talk about the development cycle. The development cycle is something that is in my life day in and day out. It might not be in yours, but you're going to partner with people at DHQ, and it's in day in and day out in their lives. And so I want you to have a shared language. I want you to understand these elements of the process so that when you hear your DHQ development colleagues talking about it, you're familiar, you know what they're referring to, and you know how you might be able to help. So the cycle is dynamic, not static. It's continuously going in a circle, and sometimes it flows, as you see the image on the slide, and sometimes it pops all over, but nonetheless, it's continuously going. It is a professional fundraising process. So as professional fundraisers, we're all very vested in this process and know this process and live this process, and it's a shared language that we can have with you. So it starts with identification, and we're identifying the donors. We're understanding their affluence, we're understanding their influence, we're understanding their affinity. Then we're cultivating them. So the cultivation process is engaging with them, coming alongside them, understanding their values, understanding why our organization is so important to them. And after that process, then we go into qualification. For qualification, we're trying to understand what they are expecting from us and what we hopefully can expect from them. And then we go into the ask, the solicitation. We're sitting down with that donor, maybe across a table, having a cup of coffee, and we're asking them for an investment. And we want to make sure we did our homework in the qualification phase, so we're asking for the right thing that engages them and engages us. And then once that's complete, we go into the recognition phase. Recognition for each person is different. It's unique. It's what they find meaningful. And it's our job to try to understand that and match that. And then we go into stewardship, and this is advancing the relationship. Perhaps it's sending them an article about something that we know that is really important to them, or acknowledging their birthday or the birth of their grandchild. The list can go on, but engaging in that relationship, and then we start all over again. So this is the cycle that we live and breathe, and we want you to know about and be a part of. And then services. Each DHQ is organized a bit differently, and that's okay. I'm speaking to you the way that the Northwest Division is organized in the development office. Not all development offices are organized this way, but that's okay. This is at least a reference point for us to get started about how you can partner with your local DHQ. So the services that we offer in the Northwest in the development department are advisory board development, capital campaign support, corporate engagement, donor relations, which is essentially individual giving, and that can be major gifts, that can be mid-level. It also involves portfolio training and data management. And then there's gift planning, so gifts in your estate, grants, and that can be private funders as well as government funders. It might vary in your division, but that's how we operate. And then there's wonderful marketing and communications that have quite a few services of their own, including direct marketing, which is both mail appeal and digital appeal, and all the efforts that go along with that storytelling process, fundraising events, multimedia, so think about your websites, your social media, your print, your video, and then public relations, so all things advertising and media. Quite a list. Isn't it wonderful to know that you have partners in all these areas? All right, so here is a sample organizational chart, and this is from our development department in the Northwest Division. I share this not for you to memorize all these pieces and know all these pieces, but to see the collective impact. These are all professional fundraisers that are here to support you, working toward your goals. So please make sure that you know who does what and how they can help you, and make sure you access that support. All right, so I started out with the importance of fundraising. I hope you remember that, and I hope I convinced you that it was important. And with anything in life, if it's important, it means you need to invest your time in it, and you'll get back what you put in, right? So it's very important to dedicate time to development. I like to say at least 1 hour a day. You make your schedule, you do what's right for you, but at least an hour a day. And be intentional with that hour. What is going to have the best return on investment? What's going to set you up for future success? This is a long game, so think about it in that regard. And you want to set goals for yourself, and we'll go through the annual development plan toward later in the presentation. And that the purpose of that is to help you set your goals so that you can be intentional. And then, of course, recruit and grow your partners. The more people you have in the community helping you, the better. The further your reach, the greater your outcomes. All right, so networking. Good segue, right? Talking about growing support in the community. Networking's invaluable in that effort. It's all about you adding value in your community so that your community adds value to your mission. Now, this is pretty obvious. I know you all know this, but it's worth stating. Join community service groups and social service groups. This can look like Kiwanis, Rotary for community groups, social service groups. Perhaps it's a coalition of food bank folks or a coalition of shelter folks. These are really important groups to be a part of. And you don't want to just be a part of it, right? You've got to show up. That's number one. But number two, find a mentor within these groups. Incredibly important. Somebody that has experience within the group, somebody that has influence and respect within the group. And ask them to please put you under their wing and usher you through this community group so that you can get to know everyone and you can offer as much as you hope that they will give you back in return. Ask to present on your needs. Now, they want this. They want to know how they can make a bigger difference in the community. So they're seeking people to do this. So this isn't a big ask. You can do it. Present on your needs, and make sure if you are given the opportunity that you think carefully about what you want to present, you make a request, and then you follow up, because this is a really important opportunity for you. Also, if you're around for a while, consider serving in leadership. It's a great way to get involved, and it's a great way for you to have a more meaningful interaction with everybody in that particular group. And last but not least, I started out by talking about this being a value add proposition, right? So value add propositions are both ways, right? Each party needs to have a mutual benefit. So connect dots and introduce selflessly. You might meet Sally, you might meet John. Sally and John don't know each other, but you know they've got similar interests. Introduce them. It will come back to you in the future. You don't know exactly when, but that will be a benefit for you long term. So always be thinking about the value add proposition. What can you offer? And then what can they offer? Don't always think of it just from one-sided. So relationship building is next. And this is about internal and external allies, right? We need to be focused in both areas, extremely important. When I say internal, yes, I mean Salvation Army, right? So in your local community Salvation Army, the folks at the core, as well as your team members, but also people at DHQ, people at THQ, all throughout the United States. Always be thinking about that. And then also external allies in your community. How do you build out that picture of support in your community? So some tips to think about. I think these are pretty obvious when you think about relationship building, but it's always worth mentioning. So number one is the importance of listening. Be an active listener. You want to receive what they're offering. You want to be reflective. You want to be supportive. And just really listen to what they are trying to tell you. And maybe you can connect some dots that they're not able to see yet. Think about trust. The whole idea of relationship building is you're trying to build that trust factor. So you want to be open to trusting others and you want people to trust you. So think about that. And I know you do that every day, particularly with the folks that you serve in the community. Also think about respect. I think it's important, trust and respect go hand in hand. And one thing too that we all just need a reminder sometimes, self-awareness. Be very aware of what you're putting out and how you're presenting yourself so that people can hear what you have to say and hear what you have to offer. Be inclusive. Don't think about it as, oh, I can't wait to stand by that person with that high title in the room so I can talk to them, or so-and-so told me that this CEO is going to be at this restaurant, so I've got to go over there and see if I can get some time with them. Think about everybody being someone that might be able to support you and help you. And if you have that open-mindedness, it will come together and you will be able to find the people in the community that can really help you make a difference. And then open communication, I think, is an obvious one. Just, again, if you're listening, if you're focusing on trust and respect, that open communication will flow. All right, so one thing that is incredibly important in your role as a storyteller on behalf of the organization, a storyteller for what you're doing in your community, is the need to articulate impact. You've really got to practice this. This is so important. You need people to be able to hear what you have to say, and if you haven't practiced it and you don't have it down, then sometimes it doesn't come off as easily as you want it to, or as a way that someone can hear you and understand it. So this is about sharing our mission, our vision, and our values, right? You know our mission. We all know our mission. We're deeply connected to our mission. Do you know your vision and values? If you've done a strategic plan in your community, chances are you don't. You do know your vision and values. If you haven't done a strategic plan, then I recommend that exercise. It'll really help you focus on those pieces. There's 3 questions I always ask myself when I'm in a situation where I need to better articulate impact. And I recommend these for you. Why you, why us, and why now? So why you, the you in that statement is about the audience. Why that audience member? Why that donor that lives next to the core? Why that corporation that's been in the community for 10 years? You need to be able to speak to them and tell them why it's important for them. Why us is about the organization. Why is the Salvation Army uniquely positioned to solve this issue or address this challenge, and be able to articulate that? And then why now? Now is about urgency. One of the secrets always to effective fundraising is urgency. You need to be able to articulate why now is the time. And there's all kinds of ways to do that. Think about maybe you want to stand up a winter shelter. Well, maybe now is the time because winter is upon us. Temperatures are plunging. And we need to have this shelter because last year there weren't enough shelter beds for the community over the winter season, and we have the opportunity to add shelter beds. Let's do it. So be able to articulate that urgency. All right, so now we're going to switch gears to starting in your appointment. You're likely already in your appointment, so it's not really starting, but it's a way to think about toward the beginning of each appointment. You want to get to know development. Incredibly important. We talked about developing internal and external relationships. This is the internal relationship piece. So I broke this out into each element of development. I'm going to start with leadership. And what I did is some things for you to think about to ask that particular development professional when you first start your relationship so you can get a good foundation in place. So a 5-year strategic plan is really important. I hope you have one. If you don't, I would encourage that. About 3-4 years ago, the territory sent out a format. So a format does exist if you need to access that. And I would really encourage you to engage in that with your board. We have an annual development plan. This is a must. I really think you need this because this is your planning tool to set goals so you can be successful. And we'll go through that in a bit. And then ask to be introduced to the direct marketing vendor for your particular division. This is the group that manages your mail and digital appeals. Keep in mind that your revenue is probably 50 to 60%, maybe even more, coming from your mail appeal. This is an incredibly important piece of business. The development department manages it. There are things you can do to augment it and make it stronger, and it's helpful to know the vendor, to know the group, know who you can ask questions of, and so I would encourage you to ask to be introduced if you haven't been already. I also would encourage you to talk to leadership development about your board. It is really hard to build an effective board. It takes so much time and effort, but it's well worth it. There's tons of resources at the territorial level. There's tons of resources at the divisional level. You don't have to recreate the wheel, and that will just help you be more efficient at this process, but this is really important. Capital campaign activities. If this is applicable to you, please talk to development leadership about it. Again, they will have tons of resources, both at the territorial level and at the divisional level, to share with you. And they will be your advocate to the territory. So as soon as you know that you want to engage in some sort of capital effort, talk to the development team, and you need to walk hand in hand in that journey, because it'll be so important to advance it as quickly as you hope to. There's a lot of process, and the development department can help you move through that process most effectively. And then also the Christmas kettle plan. Each division is a little bit different on how they approach Christmas kettles, and you want to make sure you understand the culture within that division and understand the resources and expectations that are available to you for Christmas kettles. And development leadership can help you in that process. All right, so also, starting in your appointment, next is getting to know the fundraisers. Incredibly important. This is corporate, donor relations, grants, and gift planning. You want to know all of these staff members that are assigned to your particular geographic area. You want to spend time with them. You want to be in relationship with them. What they can do for you is they can share with you the donors in your area, and they have lists that they can provide. They can tell you any sort of interactions they've had with them, any hopeful interactions they want to have, and you can really get to know who are your supporters in your area. Hopefully they can schedule quarterly visits with you and those donors. Really important. I highly encourage that. And then they can share community connections with you that you might not be aware of, and vice versa. Maybe you've developed some community connections that'll help them. So really, that's a two-way street and a great way to leverage your partnership. All right, so next, starting in your appointment, is getting to know the marketing and communications team. This is a group that's really important. You want them to be your best friends. So you need to understand your media market, who in your market, radio, TV, print, and develop relationships with these folks so they're more willing to provide earned media for you, so you're not necessarily having to buy all of it. You want to build these local relationships over time, and also you want to access DHQ services. There's website and social media things, there's paid and earned media things, there's fundraising event resources. All of this will help your job be easier. They've already done it, don't recreate the wheel. And then super, super important, and part of the development plan, you need a quarterly media plan. What stories are you going to pitch to the media on a quarterly basis? It can be more frequent than a quarterly basis. I encourage that, but if you're just getting started, aim for quarterly and grow from there. Okay, also starting in your appointment, another very important group or person to get to know is your donor care folks. They're going to be able to help you with revenue reporting, and donor care. And that is how we provide, one of the ways we provide excellent customer service to our donors that we value so much. So this individual or group can help you understand your revenue goals and where you are to date toward those revenue goals. They can help you identify donor opportunities. They can provide access to portfolio report subscriptions, so they just automatically show up in your inbox and you know where you're at all times. They can also help you thank your donors, which goes a very long way. It's very special to think of, I don't know, a 65-year-old woman who has known Army officers in her community since she was a little girl, and she gets a handwritten note from you in the mail, and she just thinks it's the bee's knees. You can make all the difference with a relationship by thanking your donors in that way. And they can also, this individual or group can provide great customer service to your donors. Maybe your donor's calling you and asking for an address change. And then you can share this with the donor care specialist to make the change in portfolio. Or maybe the donor calls the donor care specialist and asks them, and then the donor care specialist tells you, oh, by the way, Mrs. Smith called and wanted this change. I just thought I'd let you know. So this is a way that you can work together, and it goes a long way to let our donors know how much we care and value them. All right, so next we're gonna move into fundraising targets. I am going to try to share with you what you need to know about your own fundraising so that you can be aware of where you need to be, where you want to go, so that you can tell that story to the community, to your board, to corporations, the list goes on. So your annual operating budget, this is the Shelby balance sheet. I'm going to show you an example here in a second. Your annual budgeted revenue, so that you're able to look at that monthly, and you want to know where you're tracking toward that at all times. And we have something called SciSense. So we've got Shelby, that is what finance uses, and then we've got SciSense. SciSense is what is a software that we use to download information from portfolio so that it will put it in a nice visual package for you, and that will help you understand what your portfolio revenue looks like. And I'll go through that here in a minute. Your top 3 fundraising priorities and associated costs. You need to know this at all times. It's really important. This is what, the reason you need to know this is if a donor comes to you at any time and says, well, what's your priority? What can I do to help you? You're able to answer that question effectively and strategically. What's the most important thing for your core, for your appointment? And we'll talk about that in the development plan. And then you also want to know your top 10 donors. More than that is great, but start with the top 10 to make it manageable. You need to know the folks that are supporting you in the community. It's really, really important. And chances are they're pretty loyal and they've been a part of supporting you for a really long time, and they can help you beyond just giving you gifts. They can introduce you in the community. They can support you when you're facing challenges. It's really important that you know this group of wonderful people. All right, so we're gonna move into annual operating budget. Here in front of you, you have a lot of numbers. This is an example of a Shelby balance sheet. This is actually for King County in Seattle, Washington. And you can see at the bottom the total expense line, and there's 3 red circles. So you can look at the actual for 2022, how much have you raised so far to date, and then you can look at your budget this year, 2022, right? And then you can look at favorable or unfavorable balance. What's the variance? This is something that you should always be aware of. So basically, if I'm looking at this and this is my area, I know that my budget in FY22 is $25.1 million. Okay, great. I can tell that to anybody that asks me. And what that tells somebody, if someone were to say to you, what's your annual operating budget? And then you tell them $25.1 million. They better understand your footprint in the community. They have a business mind and they're thinking about it from your size perspective. And they think, oh, 25.1 million. Oh, that's pretty similar to that other nonprofit that I know down the street. Okay, that helps me visualize how much they're able to achieve on an annual basis. So it's just a way to have a business speak with someone that has a business mindset. And then your actual year to date, you know, okay, how am I tracking toward this? So according to this, they're at 25 million. So they've got a little over 100,000 that they need to raise before the end of the year. They've got plenty of time. They're going to be able to do it. So they're in a good financial situation. You always want to have your pulse on this. Super important. And you want to be sharing it with your board. If it's positive, you can celebrate together. If it's not positive, your board can help you. They can help you get past that struggle, that financial struggle. And they have the resources and the connections, hopefully, to ensure that that can happen. All right. So here is your annual revenue. Again, this is a Shelby balance sheet, so this is coming from finance. And if you have questions about this, you can always ask development, but truthfully, the best crew to ask is your finance team. But obviously development looks at this too. We're in charge of bringing the money in, and then finance is in charge of managing once it arrives. So here we go. You've got some red circles here. Why are all these red circles? So I want to help you understand when you're talking about fundraising, I'm just talking about fundraising, what am I looking at with the balance sheet, right? So it's not as simple as you might think. So you can see on here unrestricted contributions and designated contributions and kettle income, your first 3 lines. All of those are a result of fundraising. So you want to take that into consideration. And then you can see special fundraising events line. That's obviously part of the fundraising team's efforts as well. Okay, so we've got 413 on this list from special events. And then you want to look at United Way and other federated organizations, and you want to look at fees and grants from government agencies. So sometimes fees and grants are considered fundraising and sometimes they're not. It depends on your division. In our division, we actually don't put the fundraising revenue there, but sometimes places do, so I bring it to your attention. And then you want to take all of these line items that are circled and you want to add those up, and that's going to tell you how much you have from fundraising. You can see here, if you look at the total income line, actual year-to-date 2022, it's $24.8 million. However, not all of that is coming from fundraising. If you add up those circles that I've showed you, that will then tell you how much is actually coming from fundraising. And that's something that your board will want to know and community members will want to know too. And you might have an annual report that you do every year, and this is a number that you would put in the annual report. How much are you fundraising from the community each year? And then you can also check your budget year to date. So in this instance, the budget is $26.1 million, and their actual year to date is 24.8. That's all revenue, not just fundraising revenue. They've got a few months left in the year to achieve that 1.3 deficit, and I think they're going to do it. They're going to have a good year. All right, last but not least, and we'll get past all this financial report conversation. This is a SciSense report. So this comes out of Portfolio. The last 2 reports we looked at were from Shelby. This is from Portfolio. So Portfolio tracks all revenue that we can align with to a donor, and the donor information gets put into Portfolio as well as the donor's gift information. And so we can then pull it out and have these beautiful reports to share with you. You can see here, again, this is King County in Seattle, Washington, and you can see all the different avenues of the revenue and how it comes in, corporate, digital, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can see the total for FY21 was 7.7 million. FY22 total was 8 million. And you can see the percent difference is 4%. So they've had a 4% increase year over year, which is fantastic. So these are reports that are available to you at any time, and your donor care individual at DHQ can set you up with a portfolio subscription for this report for your particular area. And this is a report that I highly recommend that you get on a monthly basis. Okay, now we're going to talk about activities to support growth. So I'm often asked, well, how am I going to impact fundraising out in the field when there's 20 plus of these wonderful professional fundraisers at DHQ that are managing our fundraising efforts for the division? Well, please know that you have a very important role and you do have control over your fundraising destiny. Things that you do day in and day out will make a difference. And if you don't do anything, as you can imagine, that will make a difference too. So I want to talk about the activities that you can do to support growth so that you know your role and what's going to have some good return on investment in your community. Alrighty, so you're obviously going to partner with your DHQ fundraising team. We've been talking a ton about that. I know you're going to do a great job. And what else are you going to do? You're going to have an annual development plan. You're going to follow that annual development plan. We'll get into that more. You're going to visit with your donors and your development colleagues together on a regular basis. You're going to thank your donors on a monthly basis. You choose how you want to do that. Do you want to call them? Do you want to write them a handwritten note? Whatever that looks like, but invest in that. You're going to build your board and your council, whatever you have in your particular area. These are the individuals that are going to help you make a difference. These are true partners for you that have influence and affluence and can help move the needle. You're also going to personalize your direct marketing, social media, and website content. The more local content you have on those channels, the more likely people are going to engage with those channels and want to be a part of what you're doing. You're going to network in your community. We talked about that at the beginning. You're going to host fundraising events. You can do it. I've got a slide in here in a bit about how to do it. And then you're going to lead your Christmas kettle effort, which you know and you do really well. And just keep at it and keep growing it. Okay, so individual giving, activities to support growth. Know your top 10 donors. We've been talking about that. You want to engage with your board or council in that process. You want to thank all your donors. So what do I mean when I say thank? We're talking about your new donors. We're talking about your last year but not this year donors. And we're talking about your donors that have had really exciting giving milestones. Maybe they just gave you a gift and it marks the 25th year that they've been giving consecutively. Or maybe they just gave you $1,000 gift, but when you add up all their giving, it equals $100,000. Who knows? But these are reports that you can get from DHQ, and these are awesome ways to engage with your donors. You can participate in quarterly donor drop-offs. I promise you, this is fun. And this can happen around maybe donut day or Christmas time, you choose, but this is a wonderful way to just have FaceTime with your donors. You're not asking anything of them, you're just dropping some little something off and saying, hi, I appreciate and value you, and it'll go a long way. You can host tours of your facility. There are incredible things happening at your core, your facility, every day. Show the community. They want to know what's happening behind those doors, behind those windows. How are you transforming lives? They can't wait to see it, and I really encourage you to do that. And then you want to network in your community. We've talked a lot about that. All right, so activities to support growth on the organizational giving side of things. This is corporate and grants, another wonderful way to increase revenue for your particular efforts. You want to know community funders, right? Who's the community foundation in your area? Who's the big corporate giver? And you want to ask for warm introductions. Maybe your board can give you warm introductions. Maybe your Kiwanis friends can give you a warm introduction. Maybe your neighbor to the core can give you a warm introduction. The list goes on, right? But you want to meet the corporate leaders. You want to meet the board of directors for granting groups. This is very common for it to be several family members and a few outside members. And the more you can get to know those folks, the greater likelihood that they will fund you. And you want to get to know your government decision makers. This can be your elected officials, this can be appointed officials. It's different in every community, but it's really important that you make time to talk to them and get to know them. So activities for growth in plan giving. When you're out and about in the community, you want to listen for cues. This is back to that concept of active listening. So you're waiting for someone to share with you about how they value your organization, why they value our organization. Some other things that are pretty common cues, they might be talking about how some property that they own is becoming a bit of a burden for them. It's too hard to manage, taking too much time, it's too far away. You might hear them talk about tax challenges. Oh my gosh, the tax law changed, the taxes keep going up, I don't know how we're gonna be able to deal with the property tax for this. Or you might hear them talk about the need to care for a family member long-term, whereas they hadn't necessarily thought about that, and now they're getting into kind of estate planning matters, and they're realizing that they want to care for this family member, or they have to care for this family member. And these are things that if you hear someone mention this, it's a good opportunity for you to say, oh, well, we have professional plan giving folks on our team. If you're interested, I could introduce you. They might have some ideas for how to address that. And then you can make that introduction. And sometimes people are willing to, and sometimes they're not. But just to know that you actually thought about that and you really do want to help, you're coming from at a place of trying to make their life easier, chances are they're going to want to talk to your colleague. So please offer that up. Also, you want to introduce potential donors to gift planning directors if they're in the older age range and you know that they're thinking about gift planning, you know that they're thinking about how they're going to manage their estate for the future. It's just a certain phase in your life. It's a very common thing to know that they want to seek professional advice in this capacity, and know that don't be afraid to encourage them to talk to your colleague. And if they want to, wonderful. If they don't, that's okay too. And you can ask your gift planning directors to please host seminars with your board or other audiences in your local community. And these are great professional seminars that talk about tax planning, talk about estate planning, talk about ways to minimize taxes. The list goes on, but they're very very informative and very welcomed, particularly by the age range of people that are thinking about that for the future. And then you want to also, just like with major gifts, you want to visit your plan giving donors with your DHQ colleagues. It's a really wonderful opportunity to say thank you for their long-term support. And imagine if you decided personally to give your entire estate to the Salvation Army, and you're still living, and you know that's not going to happen maybe for 10 years, maybe 20 years. We don't want to rush it. When someone comes and says thank you and recognizes that you have done that for the organization, that's really meaningful, and you get to be a part of that. And I promise you'll very much enjoy it if you haven't done that so far. All right, so again, more activities to support growth. Now we're going to talk about media engagement. You definitely need to partner with your local media. So you want to send impactful stories to them on a regular basis with the hopes that they will air that for you or print that for you. And this is called earned media. Essentially, it's free advertising. Why wouldn't you do it, right? But in order for them to pick that up, you definitely need to have a relationship with them so they're more incentivized to feature you. You can invite them to serve on your board. This is a wonderful way to open up that relationship and strengthen that relationship, and then celebrate and recognize them as appropriate, right? They do so much for nonprofits in the community, and I don't know if we sometimes we think, oh, we're gonna go thank our donors. Think of your media partners as your donors. They're giving you a service, and often they're giving it to you at no cost. You want to celebrate that, so don't forget to recognize them too. And also, I encourage you to know where we spend our advertising budget. So there's things happening nationally, there's things happening at a divisional level, and then there's things happening at the local level. And you want to know all of those things, because that could be a leverage opportunity for you. Just because you're not involved in the details of the national buy doesn't mean you shouldn't know what's going on with the national buy. Because chances are there's an affiliate in your community that's financially benefiting from that national buy. And if you know that, then you can leverage that at a local level. So super important. And DHQ can help you with that. All right. Again, more activities to support growth. Now we're going to talk about fundraising events. You need to host one, at least one a year. This is super important. This is how you control your fundraising destiny. If you haven't had one previously, don't go hog wild. Set an achievable goal. In your first year, around 5,000 is a good place to start, and you can grow from there. You want to identify your event audience. You don't want to push repeat. If you've already got a board event, doesn't necessarily mean you need another board event. You want to think of a fresh, new audience. That way you're not double tapping, triple tapping the same folks. And maybe that audience is the Kiwanis Club. Maybe that audience is the employee base of a large corporation locally. There's all different types of ideas, but make sure it's a fresh audience. and you want to recruit dedicated volunteers to help you with this effort. Fundraising events take a lot of hands because it is a lot of work, and you want to have many people coming alongside you helping you with that. And also you want to maintain your expenses, so think carefully about that. And this will help you maximize revenue. We all want to do that, right? And then engage your DHQ development team for resources and tips. They're not going to host the event for you. They're not going to do the event for you, but there are so many resources that they have that other corps, other units have used that might be a really good fit for you, and it'll just help you with your efficiency and your success. All right, and then advisory board development, another way to support growth for your corps. You need to understand the strengths of your current group, right? Like what's their professional expertise? What's their life experience? What's their commitment to you? And then you want to ask that board to please set and track progress towards annual goals. That way they have direction, they have purpose. They're not just coming together once a month to eat lunch together. That's nice, but that doesn't necessarily advance your mission, right? So you need them to identify goals that are going to help you advance your mission, and then have them track their progress towards those goals. It'll be meaningful for them, it'll be meaningful for you, and hopefully it will elevate, augment your outcomes. So win-win for everybody, right? And then you want to engage your board in annual fundraising. We talked about the fundraising event, great way to engage your board. Doesn't have to be that way. Maybe they want to do a virtual kettle campaign for Christmas, or maybe they want to raise money to help send more kids to back to school shopping. There's all kinds of options. You got each area is different, so do what's best for your particular corps and your community. And then you want to seek their feedback in all things, because the more that they are invested in what you're doing and how you proceed with that, the more that they will come alongside you and make sure that you're successful at it. They'll give you resources for it. They'll leverage their other resources from their family, from their community, from their church. The list goes on. So it's just really important that they're actively engaged in all things that you're doing. And then last but not least, I keep saying this, please engage your DHQ development folks for resources and tips. They have so many resources for advisory board development at the territorial level, even at the national level, and then in your local community too. All right, so I have mentioned many times the annual development plan, and this is your homework. So I wanted to go through the plan with you. And we've done this in the Northwest now for 1 year. We've had great successes. We've also learned a lot about how to make it even better and how to maximize it for great outcomes. And I want to share that with you so you can benefit from that. And hopefully it's a great journey for you, just like it was for us and will continue to be for us. All right, so the first slide that you'll see in here, and you might laugh a little bit about, is our mission. You'll think, well, gosh, I know our mission. Why do I have to have a slide that says our mission? Practice it. You need to practice it. You need to be able to say this in a inspiring, engaging fashion to any community member, regardless of their walk of life, so that they feel invested and they want to be part of this mission, okay? And say it in your own words and what resonates for you and hopefully will resonate for them. And then divisional stats. Fill in these stats. You're going to have to talk to your DHQ colleagues in development to get this information, I would imagine. And it's really important that you have these committed to memory. I know they're not your stats, but you're part of the division, and this shows the collective power of the Salvation Army. And this allows you to tell a story to community members that you're part of this big, incredible mission that is making a huge difference. And there's people just like you in the neighboring town, and the neighboring town, and the neighboring city, and the neighboring city, and collectively you're all working towards the same goal and making a huge impact. And that's something that your community, they want to know what's going on locally for sure, but they like knowing that. They like to know they're part of a winning team. And the more you can articulate that, the better. All right, so here you go. You get to put in the name of your appointment and talk about the duration of service in the community. What are you known for, and how does it help? So outline this. You should be able to just say this off the top of your head really easily. Put it in this PowerPoint. You can share it with your board. You can share it with your staff. You can share it with whomever else, and you will all be singing from the same song sheet. You will all be sharing an impactful message with the community, and the more you practice it, the more they practice it. You'll all be together in unison, and when you're together like that in unison, that is really powerful. And then you'll start hearing people in the community saying it to other people in the community, and here you are, you've just started this wave of supporters, the Salvation Army, and this is where it all starts, the seed. All right, so now you want to talk about the services that you offer. These are your social service programs. Outline them. Again, this is what you want to share with your board, what you want to share with your team, et cetera, et cetera. So you're all saying the same thing in the community. And then you want to know your core stats. So we talked about the divisional stats. Now it's your turn to talk about your local stats. So search these out, commit them to memory, be able to share them. I'll tell you, when our divisional commander travels around our division and visits a corps or unit, she always asks these. She wants to know how practiced her officers are at sharing this with the community, and she gets really excited when a corps officer can do it effectively. And then when someone stutters or can't remember or doesn't know, it's always one of the things that she brings up as an area to please work on. So this is really important. All right, so I've talked about a strategic plan several times. Here's where you can enter that information. If you haven't done this exercise, I encourage you to do it. This is just a very easy snapshot way to look at it. You've got your phase 1, whatever your goal is, your phase 2, whatever your goal is, your phase 3 of whatever your goal is, when you're starting it, when you hope to complete it. And I encourage you to fill this in. All right, and then this is one that's near and dear to my heart and super important for your success. Please know your top 3 fundraising needs. You want to know what it is, how much you think it's going to cost, and the impact that it's going to make in your community. So think big. You can pick the top 3 things, anything, the sky's the limit. I encourage you to put some real careful thought into this and be able to articulate this to your community. I'm excited for you. This is where you change lives, transform lives for the better. All right, so we talked earlier about your annual operating budget, and I talked to you about the various line items within the Shelby report that will help you tally this up. And I encourage you to do this for your particular unit. And you've got a tutorial in this slide deck to help you with that. Next, key personnel. This shouldn't be too hard, but list out your names and then your staff team members and what they do, so you have one snapshot of everybody working together. And then your board members. Who are your board members and what are their occupations? Do you know all their occupations? Board member relationships are personal. You want to know, what do they do for a living? Do they have kids? Do they have grandkids? Do they always vacation in a certain place within your state? Whatever it is, but you really want to know about their lives. It's super important, and you want to foster those relationships just like you would with a church member. You know how to do that very well. And this is how you'll be able to connect dots and further that relationship and maximize those connection points and opportunities. Alrighty, so we talked about board members. Now let's talk about prospective board members. An exercise that we'll talk about later is going through and identifying the expertise that you have and then identifying the expertise that you need. So once you've identified the expertise that you need, then you can make a list of who your prospective board members might be and think about the different ways that you'll find these individuals: service clubs, gift and kind donors, top donors, board member networks, large local companies, the list goes on, but really try to think strategically about the resources that you have in the community and where you might find these people and how you might find them. And then key community partnerships. What partnerships do you currently have? And this could be perhaps service clubs or volunteer partners or some sort of organization within the community. And be aware of these, list them out so everyone is aware of them. And then of course you hope that the list will grow over time. So that leads us to prospective community partnerships. Again, who do you let you know what you have? Now let's identify what you need. And this is a place that you can have that running list and work toward achieving that list. All right, communications. You want to know your local media contacts and outlets. List all of the people that you want to get to know and you want to build relationships with to encourage more earned media on your behalf. And then you want to identify the subject matters for your quarterly media stories. You need to be pitching at least one quarterly media story and look at Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. What are you going to focus on? What's the most impactful story that you can tell for that quarter to your media partner so your media partner will put you on the air or put you in print? All right, fundraising events. List out your fundraising events here, the date, and then your fundraising goal. It's great to have all of this in one place. And then you want to know your top 10 major donors. This is something that you might need to go to your DHQ colleagues for. In fact, you likely will need to go to your DHQ colleagues for. And I would encourage you to think of it two ways. Think about the folks that have given you the most, just pure on dollar amount, and then think about the folks that have given you the most cumulatively, so their lifetime giving totals. And your DHQ colleagues can get this for you. And if you don't already know these people, these are the folks to focus on with those donor visits I was talking about earlier. All right, same thing for planned giving. Your planned giving team can give you this list. And then again, you want to visit these folks with your DHQ colleagues and get to know them. All right, and Christmas kettles, here's just a summary of all the things that would be beneficial for you to have in one place for Christmas kettles. Number of kettles, number of volunteers, net, gross, we all want to focus on net, right? And then your growth plan for this coming Christmas. All right, so now we're to the end. We've made it. This is where I encourage you to set your goals for your annual development plan. This is how you're going to grow your fundraising outcomes. This is how you're going to grow your outreach in the community. This is how you sustain yourself for the future. I talked earlier about having you taking control of your fundraising destiny. These are the things that you can do in your local community to augment your fundraising. Yes, you do have a say in this. Yes, you do have control over this. And yes, you will make this a success. So here's the template. Here's an example. And so for this particular one, goal 1 is grow your advisory board. Goal 2, develop relationships with major donors. You get the idea. And then we've identified actions for Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 to help you achieve that goal. And I encourage you to have those actions be measurable in Q1, Q2, etc., so that you can really understand what you're trying to achieve and make sure you achieve it by the end of the quarter. And if you're able to achieve all of these, you will move the needle, I guarantee you. And your fundraising will augment, tick up, keep going, right? And you will be able to do more for the mission because you have the resources you need to achieve that. And you have the amazing partnership with your DHQ development team to help you the whole way through. They will walk alongside you, provide you with resources, provide you with tips, help go on donor visits with you. The sky's the limit, and I know you're going to achieve wonderful things. So I'm excited for you to complete your annual development plan for your local unit, and please share that with me, and I'll provide you with feedback. And continue to chat and in the chat box, and we'll answer any questions or share any ideas with you and the rest of the students. And I thank you so much for your time today and everything that you do day in and day out on behalf of our mission, our community, people in need. And I feel so honored to partner with you, and I know your local development team feels the same way. So good luck. Feel free to reach out with questions, and I can't wait to hear what's possible in the future. Have a great day. Thank you.